So instead of a corral like that, get a bud box. So it costs about a fourth of the cost, and you can run a lot of animals through it. Bud box. Going over here to see the pasture.
A little bit more about the handling facility. We've got about, I don't know, there's a half an acre there. We call it a cattle trap. So we can bring about 350 to 400 head in there. Cows, calves, bulls, everything. And we trap them right there in that pen. And then we take them over there by that shed. There's a lane that hooks onto that corral. We'll bring 30 to 35 head at a time into that corral. The cows get to leave. So we just open up this side of the corral, get the cows out, and then we're left with the yearlings. Folks, the only shot that we give is blackleg. I don't vaccinate the cows. Anything 2 years and younger, that's when they get a vaccination, a blackleg shot. We castrate the bulls. Those were done on the other farm where the sheep are. I've got another corral system over there. So the bulls were taken up, and we use a cow crate bander. We band them at a year of age. So we're going to use the nuts on the bull to put on weight. I got that one from Ian. Ian would come over here, and I'm got a baby calf thrown down on the ground, and I'm cutting the testicles out, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm making him a steer." Well, I said, God gave him testicles to put on weight, testosterone. What are you taking them out for? So he said, here in the United States, we like to make things tough on ourselves. He said, in Africa, we like to taste the bull meat. Steers don't have any flavor. So he's kind of getting me there. So we leave the testicles in instead of getting them up 120 days later and putting an implant in their ear to make them put on weight. We leave the testicles in. We do give them the tetanus shot at the time of banding, and that's it. They do recommend giving them a booster shot 3 to 4 weeks later. I've never done that. I've never lost an animal.
How old is the bull?
They're a year old. They got a pretty good set of testicles on them. I think I am going to try the California bander.
They're nice.
I've talked to enough people that said they're a lot easier than the cow crate. You're not down there so long around they can kick. The person that has the most important job is the guy holding the tail, holding that tail straight up over the back. So I'm looking at the California bander. I think the bands are cheaper than the cow crate.
A lot cheaper and
Yeah.
a lot quicker.
They're a lot quicker. So I'm going to try
I
it.
don't think you're doing anything.
Yeah.
You're like, the
Yeah.
first ones you do, you're like,
Yeah.
I need to stay down here for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm definitely intrigued. I'm gonna try those. So that's it. Oh, and the cows that lose their ear tags, we try and keep a tag and everything. The reason we do that is we can keep track of who's calved and who hasn't. We can go back to our calving chart, and any cow that hasn't calved in 12 months, we can get rid of them. That's what we do. So it's not an exact science. It kind of is. We want her to give us a calf. We're not just going to get a freeloader out here that eats our grass and gives us nothing in return. If you're not tagging them, how do you know? Okay. There's a weaning pen on the other side of that corral. It goes down the hill to a tire tank. And that one's about 5 acres. And it's got 4 strands of high tensile all the way around it. We used to wean. That's when we weaned it. We don't wean anymore. Anyway, that weaning pen is worth its gold. In weight and gold, and that's because, well, for instance, the steers came by here in the mob. We needed to load them on Wednesday, and it was Monday. We just went out to the poly wire, sorted the steers out, walked them into that weaning pen, and kept going with the mob. So we didn't have to turn around and bring the whole mob back. If I've got a bull sold or two, we'll bring them. If we got to test 9 bulls at the vet for semen test, we can run them into that weaning pen. So it's really nice to have a little grass trap that you can put an animal in that's got water hooked to it. And the water in that paddock is the same one that's hooked onto the pond over there. And that's the circle we're going to make. So we're going to go down the hill here. You look to that big dam off to the left there. That's the lake that Doc built for me. I was going to put in an $800 pond right over here on this hill. And Doc told me, he said, hold off. He said, I want to come out and talk to you. So we're standing up on the hill. He said, how would you like to have a lake over there in that draw? I'm like, well, that'd be pretty sweet. But I knew what it was going to cost. It was a ton of money. And Doc said, no, he said, I'm going to pay for it. And so I paid for the pipe. There's a 4-inch line going through that dam on the very bottom of that dam. And it's got a standpipe that comes up about 16 feet with a cap on it. And that standpipe has got holes drilled the first 8 feet from the top down. So I'm grabbing my water more off the top of the water than the bottom. Folks, remember that. Your oxygen in your water is the best on top of the water, not on the bottom. If you go in real deep water, you're not going to catch a fish down there. You know why? There's no oxygen. And Mark Bader said, if you can get oxygenated water into your cows, they're going to perform much better. You're not going to have all the bacteria and algae and the stinking smell. But you take water off the bottom of that lake is 30 feet deep. You take the very bottom of that water and stick it in a tank. The cattle aren't getting any oxygen. And Mark went as far as saying maybe get a solar bubbler. Put a bubbler on there so you can get some air bubbles in that tank. Your cattle will drink more water and they'll do better. They get more oxygen. It makes sense. So we got a tar tank right below that dam. We had enough pressure that we ran water up this side. So we've got water on each side of that creek. What you're looking at there is all fed by those 2 tanks. Now this paddock that we're standing in, this is about a 45 acre paddock. I used to have about 4 permanent high tensile wires that ran down to that creek. And then I'd make lanes over that tar tank. Folks, we can really make things complicated. And when I started ripping out high tensile wire and going with the bigger paddocks, I'd never look back. Look at that out there. Do you all see a cattle trail out there anywhere? There are no cattle trails because we don't put the fence in the same place each time. We're always moving it. So you can look for a tree on a 100-degree day. You got temporary fence. Go find you a tree for them. Put that in your paddock, and then the next time make sure you put a different tree in there. So let's walk to our right to that tower tank that we're looking at and talk a little bit about that.
This was mowed down about 4, maybe 5 weeks ago because there's a lot of thorn trees on it. See how thick grass is. People
if I had to guess, where's Greg at?
Go over there to that watering
He's
tank.
over there talking. I would say I ran 4-inch from that lake all the way over here. I had a backhoe come in. We had to cross that creek over there. I didn't want that pipe floating up, so we stuck her down 12 feet, right where it went under the creek. When we brought it back up, it's only about 4 foot deep where you're standing right there. This tank is deep. You're only looking at half of it. The boys and I are working on one exactly like this over on the Judy farm right now. Matter of fact, tomorrow will be the final posting on YouTube. We just started yesterday on it, and we almost got it ready. So you're standing here on 16-ton of rock. There's a geotextile fabric underneath us. Folks, this tank has been in since 2002. So 18 years, I've never hauled another load of rock. That pipe you're looking at right there is a 4-inch. If you pull up on that, it'll pop out of the bottom of that sack creek. There's a fitting down there, and it's plumbed into that creek. So it'll drain out in that creek. If you put a drain in, don't drain right here next to your tank. You're going to have a mud pit over there. Of course, the yellow float is tied to the valve. That is a Job megaflow float, but it's not a Job valve. Job doesn't make anything bigger than 1 inch. That's an 1.5 inch brass valve. And on the tank we're building right now, I put a 2-inch in. I'm going to up it up. Because, Greg was talking a while ago, or somebody asked me, what are you going to do on your stocking rate? Are you going to be adding? Are you going to be adding more numbers? Right now we're stocked at 1.8 acres per animal unit. Ian thinks if we keep building carbon like we are, we might be able to go to 1. So that means that cow herd you saw yesterday, we can double it and not add any more lambs. So folks, what's that mean?
It means the wait list is cut in half.
What?
The wait list is cut
There
in
you
half.
go. What else does it mean?
More water. More money in your bank account.
There you go. What else does it mean?
Another farm for free.
It's like somebody wrote Jan and I a check for 1,620 acres. We didn't buy any more land, we just made it twice as productive. You wonder why I'm excited about agriculture? Regenerative agriculture. Keeps getting better, folks. Ian's problem now in South Africa is buying enough cattle to eat all the grass. He's got his herd so large that they're building so much forage that he can't get enough cattle to eat all the grass. So we are in the driver's seat, folks. Somebody was here a while ago with 30 acres. They're over by Dallas. You all just started. Where are you at? Hold your arm up. Folks, you got it. You got it by you've got this. You got to get the animals out there, though. You've got a really good little piece of ground there. You can do it with 5 acres, 10 acres. It doesn't have to be 1,620. It can be whatever. It's all scale relevant. So in Africa, Ian's doing exactly what we're doing over here, but his scale's a little different. Yeah, he's in a 14-inch rainfall area. Ian gets all of his rain predictable every year in about 3 months. The other 9 months, he's in a drought. He knows that every year, so he can manage for that. But this is a really cool water tank. So when we double our capacity, let's just say we did go to 700 cows. That tank's not going to keep up. So what I can do is I can dig down right there. It's got a 4-inch line on it. I can put another tire tank right over there. So now instead of having 800 gallons, I got 1,600. I've got a 4-inch pipe. I've got a 4-inch pipe feeding it. So I'm going to still have plenty of flow. So that's what I warn people about when you're first starting. Think big in the future. So if you're putting in a 1-inch pipe to feed your farm, don't do that. Especially if you're going to bury it. If you're going to bury it in the ground and cover it up with soil, go 1.25 inches minimum. 1.25 inches. That's going to give you all the water you can ever imagine you'll ever need. Especially if it's behind pressure. Gravity, you better go bigger. Big tank, big valve, big hose. Pressurized, you can go a smaller hose, a little smaller valve, and a little smaller tank, because you're actually pressuring water in there. Ideally, I wish this was up and on top of that hill, but now you're talking electricity. I've got to bury a line. This is so simple. Yes, I have. It's not going to feed that herd of cows. Not on a 100-degree day. No way, no how. But ram pumps work with small herds. Absolutely. I think they're awesome. It's a great technique. Yes.
What's the break-even point using pond, the expensive pond water versus just using a city rural water tap?
Oh my gosh. Great question. Here's the danger of using city water. It keeps going up. I've been on it for 25 years at the house. Well, actually longer than that. I've been on it 40 years. It's going up. It's not going to stop going up because their costs are increasing. The guys used to make 40,000 a year, worked on it, now he's making 70. They got to pass that cost on to the customer. And so here's the deal. Groundwater. If you've got to pump groundwater out, you're competing with people that are drinking it. And if you get in a drought, who's going to get the water, the person or the cow? The person. It's already happened. I had a great friend in the east, and they had a drought. It got so bad that the nuclear reactor, they were afraid they were going to run out of water to pump water to keep it cool. So the water line department came out and said, no more livestock watering on our water. You cannot do it. Sent out a notice to all the landowners. And the landowners, being hard-headed like we are, you can't tell us what to do with that water. We paid our last meter bill. They said, no, you need to read your contract. The meter is ours. It's our water, not yours. They pulled the meter. People kept watering the cows out of it, and they came out and took the meter. Done. So those people still had available forage. They had no water for their livestock. They had to sell out. Folks, you can capture this water right now. It's still legal in some states. You can't do it in Colorado. You can't even put a bucket underneath a gutter in Colorado. You can't, because you don't control the water rights. But here in Missouri, I think, is it Pennsylvania? Anybody live in Pennsylvania here?
We do.
You can't build a pond there. You can't have a,
I said that on the way out. It'd be nice if you could take it to us
Yeah.
and take a pond.
but you can't.
You
So
gotta go
some,
to jail.
some states are already restricting it. Here in Missouri, we don't need to get a permit. The only time we need a permit is if you put over 30 feet of water. And then you got to get a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. Because you could kill somebody. Yeah, if that pipe breaks, or that dam breaks, somebody could drown.
No, if you tap into a continuous flow, year-round flow, the coral conservation will come after you
Yeah.
to fill your dam.
Folks, get the water. Build you a pond. If it's legal in your area, build you a pond. And I tell people it doesn't have to be big enough to ski on. I want you to look. We're going to walk back up that hill toward that tree here in a minute. There's a nice little pond down there. It's probably a half acre, but it's 17 feet deep. I've got a pipe on the bottom of it. The doc and I we built that pond for $3,000. So we each put in $1,500. And I want to show you what I did though. I trenched the line away from that pond for one reason. I'm going to show you. These bars on your tire tank, put something over it, because if you don't, a baby calf or something might get knocked off in that, and they're going to drown. Because folks, you're only looking at half the depth. There's another 18 to 19 inches in the ground. So water in here, this is our winter system. We can go in here in the winter, come to this tank, and it's going to be froze. There's going to be maybe 8 to 12 inches of ice on that, depending on how cold it's been. Don't drain your tank. So when you come to it, the first thing I do is I take my axe and I cut that float around the float, so that when that ice cube moves in that tank, it doesn't break my float off of my valve. Then I just start cutting around here. And I make the interns reach in there and grab some chunks. There's Ben and Isaac. We've pulled 14-inch deep ice cube out of there. Yeah, so get your arms ready. we might want to invest in some ice balls.
Ice bath challenge.
Yeah. Anyway, once you cut the ice cube off and you're on this tank for, let's say, heck, you might be on it 3 weeks. And you drain that up there on the top, over there, and then you unroll hay here for maybe a week or whatever. So the cattle keep the ice cube off pretty much. You'll come here in the morning, and there'll be maybe a couple inches of ice on it. It's not a big deal. But if you drain the water out of that, and you come around to it in your rotation, you're never going to use it. Because that supply line now had cold air hit it, it's froze way the heck back over here. And it's not going to thaw till spring. You're done. So when you're done with them, let them freeze up. You may need to come back here in early spring. You still got a little hay up there you need to unroll. You still got a water source down here. Okay?
Greg, you don't allow that to overflow in the wintertime.
You can. You can lengthen that string. Great question, James. Yes, I can lengthen the string on that flow right there, and it comes over the top of that valve, or that hole, 4-inch pipe, and it drains out to the creek. And I have done that. Now, be careful on smaller ponds. I was consulting for a guy up in North Missouri, and he had that on every one of his ponds. Guess what happened?
Drained his pond.
Spring came, he didn't get any spring rain, and his ponds are about a quarter full. He drained his ponds in the winter, keeping them from freezing.
Could you put a reducer on that drain
You
pipe?
absolutely could, yeah. What you've got to do is the supply line, which is right there in front of that valve, you plumb in a hydrant, a brass hydrant, and you just turn it on. So the brass hydrant is in front of your shut-off valve. It's always calling for water to come. So your valve is shut off, the 2-inch. But that valve, you turned it on, just like the hydrant on the side of your house. It's going to run water out, depending on how big you open it up. So you can open it up the diameter of a pencil, and there's going to be a little bit of circulation in that tank 24/7. It's not going to freeze.
I drilled a hole in my drain pipe and
Okay.
swapped it out.
Yep.
It just trickled and
Well,
kind of just
yeah.
a
The other one, yeah, over there, that one over there, I took a hacksaw and I just cut a V in the top of my pipe so it can just trickle over the top. Yeah,
and then swapped it out one summer here.
yeah. Well, that lake over there is 30 foot deep and it's about 4 acres. I'm not going to run that dude out.
Do you ever have problems with it clogging? With pulling it on?
No, not this one. Nope. If the water was turned on, folks, I'd push down. But that's the other thing. When you leave a farm, turn your valve off, which is clearly behind that dam. If you don't, and that string would break, all you're doing is running 4 inches flow of water. And if you're a 60-day recovery period, you don't come back for 60 days, you run 4-inch water in that 30-foot lake. You're going to see it. It's going to drop her probably 6, 7, 8 feet. You don't want to be doing that. So always shut the water off. We've been burned twice. Both times we just forgot to turn the water off. And it was on smaller ponds, not like a lake. So don't do that. You can run out of forage, but if you run out of water, you're done. You know, you can always feed a little hay or sell a few cows, but if you run out of water, those animals got to have water. And don't get in a position where you're hauling water. If you've got to haul water, you're going to get tired of that real quick. Because cows drink a lot of water. Sheep, you can haul water to for a while. They don't drink near as much water.
Have you had sheep fall in there, baby sheep?
Only a baby goat. I found a baby goat, and I know what he was doing. He was running around that plane, and he fell in. And Greg Brand has concrete blocks in his. So he'll build a concrete block step out of the bottom of that tank. So when that goat's swimming around and he finally gets on that concrete, he can walk back out. So, but we don't have sheep on this farm right now, so we don't have the goats anymore. I couldn't keep them in.
Greg, did you trench or backhoe that line?
Yeah, I used the backhoe to cross that creek because I went down 12 feet. Once I didn't want it to float out. Once I got up on the bank here, we went back to the trencher. So, folks, it's 800 feet. Yep. Well, the doc paid, he put $30,000 in the dam. I think I've got about, I don't know, it's around $1,200 for trenching and pipe. Now that's not counting these tanks. Your biggest cost in this tank, of course, is the brass valve and the rock. The geotextile, it's not that expensive, 80 cents a foot. Don't get crazy putting in a pad around. This one, you measure out from right here to this wood. It's 6 feet, 6 feet all the way around. You don't need 10, 15, 20 feet sticking out there. All that's doing is costing you money and it's covering up grass. That's what it's doing.
You said in your last video you got a real good deal on tires. What about for everybody that doesn't get good deals on tires?
Yeah, well, I'm in that boat now, and I'm begging for tires. I'm looking for them. They're hard to find. There was a guy here last week from Perry, Missouri. There's somebody up there by Perry that sells these. And it's got the concrete already pre-poured in the bottom. It's got the water orifice on it for your pipe for $500. And he sets them up for you. That's not too bad, really. I mean, heck, guys, ladies, you're going to give $400 to $500 for a plastic tank that holds that much water. Go price an 800-gallon plastic tank.
It's worth that, not have to cut the sidewall out of it.
Absolutely.
What did you cut the sidewall out with?
Sheetrock knife. You notice
Oh,
there's
wow.
no steel in that sidewall. So my sheetrock knife wasn't deep enough to go all the way through it. So I cut it as deep as I could go. And then Isaac and Ben got in on it. Isaac, you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, we just took a sawzall. We drilled a hole through, like right where we were going to cut. Just took the sawzall, went around. We did the second one and we got it done in like a minute. We went all the way around.
It's that quick.
Once we got the sheetrock cut, the sheetrock knife, it took a little bit, but once we got the score, it was good.
There's all different levels of these. This is a brand new tire. It was never put on an implement. This quarry bought 200 of them from China. And the first one they put on the earth mover, it crushed. It wouldn't hold up. And that's because they didn't have any steel in the sidewall. And so what they did is they took a sawzall and cut the band right here on the part that goes up against the rim, made a big old notch in it on one side. So us farmers couldn't mount it on a tire and use it. They could see that. Like, some old redneck's going to grab that and put it on a combine and use it. So they cut a big old notch in them. And I bought them up by Kansas City, $10. Yeah, I'm crying about it. They had 200 of them. That place is not there anymore. There's a recycling center. They were grinding them up and putting them on high school tracks. That's what they're using them for. They're grinding this rubber up, folks, and they're putting them on high school tracks for track meets. It's easier on the jogger's knees.
You say there's 2 tires in there?
What's that?
There's 2 tires in there?
No, that's one.
Oh.
How'd you get
3
the
foot tall.
how'd you get the double the depth?
Right here?
Yeah.
Tires that way. You got a good video.
I understand now.
Oh, the tires have buried.
Check it out. It just came out last night.
On small ruminants,
Got another
The
coming
tire
tomorrow
has 2
night.
rows of tread.
small ruminants.
Yeah, it's half buried.
You get by with just a regular tractor tire that's only going to be 12, 14 inches.
Absolutely, yeah. Folks, if you're looking at dreams of going to 300 to 400, 500, 600 head, you've got to have some water. This is the limiting factor. Vanny Collins, a good friend of mine in McAllen, he just put in 100 miles more of water line, and he went with a 6-inch line. Yeah, he's got 2,000 cows in his herd. Yeah, 6-inch water line over. He put in over 100 miles. Can you imagine that, Bill?
How does Ian water his
How does Ian water his cow? Good question. So, he's got a river that runs all the way through his ranch. It's fed by a 1,000-acre lake that all the local landowners went together and built. And I don't know how much each landowner had to put in, but it's a big lake. I saw it. It's 1,000 acres, and it's got a big pipe in the bottom of it. And so they let that thing run just a little bit. It feeds a river that goes through everybody's land. And so Ian took and ran, let's just say this is the river. His farm is cut up like that with high tensile wires, paddings, that go across the river, all the way the length of his ranch. So he grazes down this side with access to the river. He's got a back fence right here on each paddock. Just puts in a temporary back fence, poly wire. So the cows, 4,000 cows come down to that river and drink. They can't cross the river and go into the other side. When he gets to the end, he brings them around, and then he grazes back down the other side of the range. But now, instead of having a poly wire here, it's over here. Y'all follow me?
Yep.
His cows have to walk up to 3 miles on the 3rd move. So he'll move 3 days away from the water on one strip. Okay? What he's finding out is they don't back graze because it's been fouled. Can you imagine how many manure pads 4,000 cows can put out? Yeah. But the best grass, the most nutritious grass, is the grass that's in the first 1 mile. Yeah, because that gets the most density.
Yeah.
It's getting trampled on for 2 more times.
If his cattle are getting in the creek, then is
River,
that
river. It's not a creek,
Okay.
it's a river.
Are they still experiencing the increased sediment disturbance and the
You can drink
parasites?
that water. There's fish in there that are 20, 30 pounds. Big ass fish.
Good river.
And Ian says it's because of the cows. The microbes. His banks are completely covered with forage. You would think they'd be tore up. But they're
Yeah.
not.
You would think.
That big mob has got that bank down where it's about an angle like that, where it was like that, and there's forage growing on it now. I was like you, I'm like, I gotta see this river. I bet 4,000 cows tore the heck out of it. No. No, they haven't. And the water running through that, it's clear. It's just like a swimming pool. Yeah.
Do you know how wide his lanes are?
Yeah, they're about 600 feet, probably. Yeah, 600 to 900 feet across. Yeah. He's got 14,000 acres. Yeah. Folks, we live on Easy Street here, though. Over there, you've got to put in burn lanes around your farm. So every square mile of Ian's ranch, he's got a burn lane that's about 180 feet wide, and it goes for 1 square mile, like that. So they have burn crews. That's all they do. Is they go in the fall and they burn these squares off. And the reason you got to put those burn squares in is somebody throws a match down, and it gets on your stockpile that you grew. That is your winter stockpile. If you don't have those burn lanes in, it'll burn off all 14,000 acres. Where here, it only burns off 1 square mile, 640 acres. Yeah. If you don't put those burn lanes in, you won't have any forage. The whole thing will be burned off.
What country is he in?
He's in South Africa. He's 4 hours south of Johannesburg.
Do they have problems with wildlife grazing?
Oh, he's got 22 different species of wildlife grazing on his farm now. And He gets $12,000 for a kudu hunt. $2,500 for a warthog hunt. He's like, I don't know who'd want one of them ugly things hanging on your wall. The Europeans, they'll come out. He said, they may shoot 5, 6, 7 of them. He says, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Yeah, I got to go kudu hunting when I was there. There's Elandsgate, there's Gimsbuck, impala, lion, leopard. He even had a hippo show up. But he didn't tell anybody. Because if they find out that a hippo is running loose in the general population, they'll shoot it. Because hippos kill more people in Africa than any other animal. They just run them down and squish them. Yeah. They can go 30 miles an hour for a short period. Any more questions on this water?
Where'd you get the 2-inch valve?
This does not need to be hot. This is a standard H-brace that we put in.
Yeah, the pipes.
Yeah, that's just a whole black pipe in there. And they make it look kind of cool looking.
Where'd you get the 2-inch brass valve?
The 2-inch brass valve, you can go on it online. There's a bunch of people.
For the
I was just researching them. I used to get it from a guy in Colorado, and I'm getting ready to buy 7 of them because I got 7 more of these to put in. And let me get to that page. There's a place called here we go. Watts. Watts is one of the manufacturers. The other one's called Zorro. Watts has got one for $67. I'm interested in that one because I normally give $150. So I'm a little bit gun shy of that one. I'm like, why is this so darn cheap? And then the Zorro is a 2-inch as well. It's $110. Those are both cheaper than I've ever found. Most of them are about $150. So I may just try one, buy one and try it. I love brass valves because they don't rust. One of the things I have found is the stem that goes in, that screws in, that goes to that valve, the stems on them will snap. And they snap right where the threads are. Because that's a weak point. And so what we've done is we went back with a solid rectangular square brass piece, and we've plumbed it in where we don't have that anymore.
Do you like them better than the Job if you're not going that big?
Job's a great valve, but you can't use Job on gravity flow. You need pressure.
If you got pressure, is that what you go with?
Yep. The Job Megaflow is an awesome valve. Yep. The Philmac is a great valve for small tanks. It's an orange valve. Let's see. I don't have one in. We don't want to walk her down to the weaning pen, but there's one on the weaning pen tank down there. It's a Philmac. Did you touch it?
Yeah. It's apparently not hot.
It may be shut off. Yeah, I think the switch is. Yeah, it is shut off.
I didn't turn it on.
We had a group staying here last week, and they're Jewish, and their religion, they couldn't walk anywhere on Saturday. And so, they couldn't ride in the vehicle, I'm sorry. So I put them up right up there. They plugged into my electric fence outlet, and they walked to the school each day, right through here. And I haven't turned it on, because we don't have livestock in here. And they came to get the camper, and I shut it off, because that lady got shocked. She had on cowboy boots, she stepped on my wire, and she let out a scream. I know it's hot when it's turned on. This is the 36 joule, it's the big one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
Yeah. Go overhead as opposed to burying.
Yeah, the question is, why do I go overhead rather than burying it? That's a lot of work to bury that.
Yeah.
I can get that stuff, well, I could. I hate to tell you, I didn't get the last bid. I'm not going to have any more for a while, but I can get that stuff. I buy it scrap, and I can get it worth the money. It's a lot faster for me to go up and over. Now, some landowners don't want that, because it looks kind of tacky.
Well, because I'd be scared to drive a truck under it or anything.
Now, you can get your truck under there. You couldn't put a line truck under there. Yeah, but,
Tractor.
yeah, can't get a tractor underneath that. No.
Where do you get all of your parts from?
Which parts is that?
Like these are
That?
fiberglass.
Yeah, I wish I could still get those. Folks, that's solid fiberglass. Where I worked at in town, we used to make those, and now China makes them.
What do most people? Wood.
What's that? Yeah, you could use wood. Yeah. Somebody was here from Kansas asking me about corner posts, I told them I can't get fiberglass anymore. I would use Hedge. Use Hedge corner posts. They're the best out there. You get a good hedge, that thing's going to be there while you're growing daisies in the ground. They last 80 to 100 years.
The only downside is the insulators.
Well, with Hedge, you don't need an insulator.
Well, where I am, I'll get some leakage.
Some people are going without it. I think it's in more lower rainfall areas. But yeah, if I had Hedge, I would put an insulator on them. We get back to the house, Brad's got one of those W. It's a little bit like what I like. It'd be close enough. I'll show you the insulator I do like. So this, people say, but why doesn't that freeze to the ground? Folks, there's a lot of water down in there. It doesn't have a good angle at it to freeze it until it comes right here on the top. I've played around with putting plywood on that, closing up the middle, and just having them drink off the sides. That would help a little bit, keep the water warmer. As long as you're bringing water into it, though, that's the big thing. And you got that many animals drinking, there's a lot of water going in and out of that tank. There's frogs in there, there's tadpoles, and sometimes we do get the occasional fish in there.
You can just float some styrofoam in the middle there too.
Yeah, you could. Well, you could. You could put styrofoam in. That's a great idea. I may have to try that one.
Yeah, that's easy, in and out.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
You said earlier that you would have rather had a pond up on the hill.
Yeah.
You don't have a draw up on the hill. Can you still achieve that?
There is a draw. That one we walked over right there. That palm is going to go in right up to by that tree, about 100 feet this side of it.
So you do need a draw then?
You need a draw.
Okay.
Yeah. You need some kind of water catchment.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I've got two ponds that sit right on top of the hill.
Okay.
And one took 3 years to fill up, and the other one was built in 2017, and it's only half full yet.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So if you get a 3-inch rain, guess how much your pond goes up? 3 inches. And then you got evaporation in between that. So,
How much larger can you go with this water tank with your bird?
oh, how many more cows can I put on it? Well, I can put quite a few. I've counted 25 cows drinking out of this.
There's a
One
rule
time.
of thumb for every inch of circumference, that's how many cows that could be in the field.
What was that number again?
1 inch of circumference, yeah.
For every cow.
Yeah.
But what about refill rate?
Again, big
There's an
valve.
owl drinking it once.
Yeah, big valve. And Greg's right. Folks, if the cow's got to walk a mile to get to water, the whole herd will come. If they've only got to walk 700-800 feet, you're going to have 15 to 20 coming, 15 to 20 walking back, and maybe 15 to 20 drinking. You're not going to have 300 head drinking at one time. It's just not going to happen.
Greg, don't you water with a little portable tank?
I do, a little bitty one,
Why does that work?
because it's on pressure.
So it fills up that way.
Yeah, 60 psi. Yeah.
What kind of
It's
line do you
great.
run to that?
What's that?
What kind of line do you run to that?
It's just a garden hose, 5/8 garden hose on a hydrant or a quick coupler, which the boys, I had them get a quick coupler, and matter of fact, we could put that on that hydrant there by the, yeah, we'll hook it up.
Okay, I like to see it.
Yeah, I've got
The
matter
flow
of fact, we
needs
have
to be more than they can drink.
yeah,
Or it turns into a toy and they just tear it up. So it's about, I like to see 5 gallons per head coming into that tank.
yeah. And we do stake it. We put fiberglass rods on 3 sides of that big, of that 50-gallon tank. 4 on the 100-gallon. If you don't, we're going to flip it upside down. And now you got nothing but a mud pit, water coming out all day, and a huge water bill. And your animals didn't get any drink. It's all going on the mud. So that's a terrible feeling.
What do you do when you have a water failure and the cows are all thirsty but there's no water?
It's a terrible thing to happen. And I've had it happen in my grazing career 3 times. One of it was the fault of the interns. The other 2 is just a mechanical break. But the interns actually locked the gate to the water line. The cows went 2 days without water. And it was 82 degrees. I walked in, I drove in down there in that cocklebur field. As soon as I saw the cows, these boys were just oblivious. Like, oh, the cows are doing good. And I'm like, what? They're not doing good. They don't have any water. I could see it the very second I drove in the gate. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, look at him. Folks, you want to see how fast a cow can shrink. Don't give her any water for 2 days. She looked like she's been in a POW camp. Went over there, and sure enough, they closed the gate going into that bottom that led to the pond. When they moved him in there, they closed the gate. And I wasn't there for 2 days. Luckily, it wasn't a week deal. I'd have lost a bunch of cattle. Anyway, those cows were shooting up that lane. They sucked that tank down. They were fighting. They were jumping in it. They were fighting each other trying to get a drink. We had to take a poly wire and push that whole herd out of that lane. Let that tank fill up. And we only let like 10 or 12 cows at a time. And then we had to push them out another gate and let in another 10 or 12. It took us 24 hours. And you know those cows wouldn't leave that tank? They were so scared that they were never going to get a drink again. They were petrified.
It's a good time to give them a new paddock too, to satisfy them somewhat, to get them away from that tank.
Oh, they were scared. And the looks in their eyes, I'll never forget it. The looks in their eyes, they're just looking at you with this terrible, terrible look like, you let me down.
Did you lose any cows
Nope.
during that? Wow.
No.
That's crazy.
It was, luckily it wasn't 90s. If it had been in the 90s, I'd have probably lost one, or 2 or 3.
Good pasture helped that too. You had a lot of moisture and good grass.
Yeah.
What about the time when they left the wire in the water?
Yeah, that was only one day.
Hey Greg, how do you choose where to put your ponds?
I get an idea where I need water at, and I'll go out there and look at it, and then I'll bring my dozer operator in, and I'll let him give me his ideas, because he has a lot better idea what it's going to cost me. I want you all to remember something. Again, this was taught to me by my own ex-father-in-law, passed away. And I just bought the Judy farm, right across from the Airbnb up there. And it's got this beautiful draw. And it's a slow draw. It goes up the hill real slow. It's got fingers going off of it everywhere. I saw that and man, I'm going to put me about an 8 or 10 acre lake in there. And I was still making payments. I wasn't out of debt. And Kenneth looked at me and said, son, he said, you cover up that 7 to 8 acres of land, you'll never grow another blade of grass on that. He said, you don't need to be water skiing out there. He said, all you need is a pond to water your livestock. And the money you're going to put in that one pond to build that lake, he said, you could build 10 right where you need them. And that was the best advice he ever gave me, besides going to smaller cows. So be careful, remember that. You cover it up with water, you're not going to graze it. You can't, because it's got water over it.
Are these the 2 shut-off valves over here?
One of those is a shut-off, and the other one is a quick coupler. So there's actually those plastic quick couplers underneath one of those lids. The reason I put that quick coupler in there, I thought, you know, if this thing breaks, I don't have any water, at least I can plug in a quick coupler and I can get some water. That's why I put it in there. That one, you got the lid off that one? Which one is it? That's the valve.
Quick coupler.
Is that the coupler? Yeah, it's got to be the coupler. The valve is over there. Can you reach it?
Don't let Ben put on it. He's got long arms.
Yeah, you can see it. That's one of those plastic quick couplers. It works like an air hose. When you plug in a garden hose that are hooked to a tank, you got water.
Did you get a picture? I did. I had to.
And
You had to
it's
hit on
all
your
gravity.
screen,
There's
hit
no
it where, like down there, and it'll zoom in on the actual coupler.
So Greg, if it did break, if it somehow malfunctioned and you needed to use this is low pressure, would you just have this pipe out to like a large tank and
800-gallon plastic tank.
800-gallon plastic?
Folks, when you move your animals into a paddock, remember this. Animals hate the sound of running water. It freaks them out. And the reason it freaks them out, they're like, we got to go charge over where Greg doesn't get us a drink. There's hardly any water left. They can hear running water. If your tank is full and you bring them into the paddock, they won't even come over and look at you. They're going to go eat grass. If they hear that water running, you're going to have a whole bunch of them right in your lap, and they're going to be sucking at that tank before it has 1 inch of water in it. They're freaking out. They think they're going to run out of water. Running water does that to cows, absolutely every time.
That's a 6-inch pipe.
That's a 6-inch pipe.
Have you ever used a corrugated like drain pipe?
Only on my drain. That's what's going out of that tire tank. So I use a solid pipe to get out from underneath that pad. Once I got out from underneath that pad, I went to corrugated all the way to the creek. You can buy corrugated cheap.
I mean, have you ever used it for these?
No. No way. You want a solid pipe on that. If you had corrugated sticking out, what do you think cows would do to that?
Crush it.
Absolutely, they'll crush it. Get you the good stuff. That's a 6-inch pipe.
So there's a story behind this one thorn tree that you left here?
Yeah, I wanted shade. You notice I've got a lot of them around. Well, wait till we get over that hill. I've got a whole forest of them over this hill we're going to. Folks, honey locusts like to grow out here. They grow 6 foot a year.
Wow.
Up on that hill on the other side of that big oak tree, there's 2 of them. Those are now about 30 feet tall. When I leased the farm, they were about 8 feet. They're throwing out a lot of shade. Yes, they have thorns, but I'm going to take the trade-off. I'll take the thorn, and I've got shade. Honey locust is a legume. It fixes nitrogen. They also put out a bean, a big old long bean in the fall, the females do. And that bean is about 39% sugar. And the old timers called it the fodder tree. They would gather those beans up in the fall and put them in the barn in bushel baskets. And they fed their cows honey locust beans. That's what they fed them. That was their protein source for the winter. Hogs love them. Sheep would run over you to eat them. Cows eat them. And so if you put a honey locust tree every 50 feet on a per acre basis, it's equal to 59 bushel of corn per acre per year in feed. Yeah. 59 bushel of corn per acre. Now you've got thorns to deal with there. Guess what? Some of these honey locusts are thornless. They're thornless. If you take a limb, cut it off that thornless tree, and put it on a thorn stalk, like this one right here, right over there. That one's got thorns. Cut it off and graft that thornless tree onto that one. Everything above that graft, there's no thorns. But here's the kicker. That thing grows up and gets big, and it has beans on it. There's thorns. So its offspring will have thorns. But I've just learned to deal with it. I mean, Steve McCauley, great guy. You all might have met him. He's parking you all yesterday. He's the owner of my lifetime lease. And I gave Steve a honey locust tree in a little pot one year for Christmas. And on there I put shade tree. Just to get a rise out of him. Oh gosh, he got upset. He's like, Greg, that ain't a shade tree, that's a fire. You burn those. We have a good time with that. All right, somebody want to put that lid back. Let's walk straight toward that at the hedge tree. We're going to go up over the hill down to the next water point. I want to show you what we did over there.